For topic two, we're going to look at writing percent problems as proportions. And so we need to kind of go over a few things, then we'll dive in. So what we haven't really talked about yet is that a percent is a special type of ratio where one of the quantities is 100. Okay, so it just so happens we already know that percent means parts per 100. And in the very first section in this chapter, we talked about how fractions, decimals, and percents all represent part of a whole, so we can convert between them. And we found that, hey, we can take a percent and we can rewrite it as a fraction. So if I had something like 17%, I would drop the percent symbol and then I would just put this over 100. Well, now all of a sudden we have a percent that is written as a ratio. It's 17 parts out of 100. Okay, so that's going to be really, really helpful for us when we decide to set up this percent proportion. Okay, so when solving percent problems where the whole, the entire quantity, is not exactly 100, we can create a proportion, by setting the given quantities in ratio form equal to a ratio that's kind of always set in stone. Okay, and this ratio, the given quantities that we have, it's going to always be the amount divided by the base. Those are the given quantities written in ratio format, and we're going to set it equal to the percent over 100. Okay, so that's how we can set up a proportion. Now remember, the amount is some portion of the base, and a percent is some portion of 100. And when we set up a proportion, we want our like units to line up horizontally. Well, we have our entire quantities in the denominator, and we have our portions of those entire quantities in the numerator. So we do, in a sense, have our like units lining up horizontally. Okay. Now, one really great thing about the percent proportion is you don't have to worry about converting between decimal and percent format when you have the percent. Okay. Now, if you're going into an algebra class, anytime percents come up, you would definitely be doing the equation method like we did in the previous worksheet. And what was tricky about the equation method is you had to remember to input the percent into the formula or the equation as a decimal. And then if you were solving for the percent, you had to remember to convert it, from decimal, which is what you would get from the equation, back into percent form. You don't have to do any of that here. Okay, so that's kind of nice. Now we have this bullet point that says the final proportion looks like amount over base equals percent over 100, or a lot of times we'll think of it like this: A over B, so that's still amount over base equals P percent over 100. Okay, so for example 2, it says write each percent problem as a proportion, do not solve. Okay, so we're going to figure out / label the amount, the base, and the percent, and then we're just going to fill in the proportion. Okay, so the percent is always the easy one. Percent is either clearly given or clearly missing. So we have 15% of what number? And hopefully you kind of remember that when you're dealing with these like really, really basic statements like this, the word of is typically going to mean multiply. And the word is will generally mean equals. And what is the missing piece? All right. So let's figure out our amount and our base. Now we take the percent and we apply it, which means multiply it by the base. So we've got 15% of, well, that means multiplied by some unknown number. So 15% of some unknown value is going to be 55. Well, this unknown value is my base, okay? And then once we multiply or apply the percent to the base, we get the result 55. That's going to be the amount. Okay. So if we were to fill in this proportion, we always want the amount over the base equals the percent. You do not have to write it in decimal format. You just drop the percent symbol and put whatever the number is all over 100. And there you have it. I will caution you, like I did in the previous worksheet, be really careful with your A's and your B's. Make sure your A's don't accidentally look like 9s, and make sure your B's don't actually end up looking like a 6. So be very, very careful here. Okay. Now for part B, we have the hard example. The hardest one is always when the percent is missing. So we can see 35 is what percent? So the percent is missing. So 35 is some portion of 70, okay? So if we were looking at this, 35 is some portion, we don't know what portion, of 70. So 35 is the amount. And then 35 is some portion of 70. So 70 is the entire quantity we're considering. It's also the quantity that the percent is being applied to. It would be the base. So we would get amount 35 over base 70 equals P, currently unknown, over 100. Okay? And then finally, we have what number is 25%? So that one's easy. So what number is 25% of 68? So essentially what we're doing here is we're taking 25% of the value 68. So we're applying our percent to the base, which is 68. And then the unknown value, the piece that's missing, is the result, which would be the amount. So we take the amount, we put it over the base, which is in this case 68, and that's going to equal the percent over 100. And just remember, you do not have to convert between percent and decimal form here. Just put your percent over 100. The fact that we have 25 over 100 is kind of automatically converting your percent not to decimal form, but to fraction form. So this percent, just drop the percent symbol, put it over 100. Okay. In the next video, we will look at actually solving some percent problems using the proportion method.